At the beginning of October 1941, the priests from the dioceses of the Vartigau detained in Dachau already numbered several hundreds, but their number increased considerably in that month following a sharp intensification of police measures which culminated in the imprisonment and deportation of further hundreds of ecclesiastics. Entire Kreiser districts remained thus completely deprived of clergy. In the city of Poznan itself, the spiritual care of some 200,000 Catholics remained in the hands of not more than 4 priests. No less painful was the fate reserved for the regular clergy. Many religious were shot or otherwise killed. The great majority of the others were imprisoned, deported, or expelled. In the same way, far-reaching measures were taken against the institutions preparing candidates for the ecclesiastical state. The diocesan seminaries of Gniezno and Poznan, of Vladistavia, and of Lodz were closed. The seminary in Poznan for the training of priests destined to work among Polish Catholics abroad was also closed. The novitiates and houses of formation of the religious orders and congregations were closed. Not even the nuns were able to continue their charitable activities without question. For them was set up a special concentration camp at Bojanowo, where towards the middle of 1941 about 400 sisters were interned and employed in manual labor. To a representation of the Holy See made through the Apostolic Nunciature in Berlin, your Reich Ministry for Foreign Affairs replied in the memorandum giving the number of September 28 of the same year that it was only question of a temporary measure taken with the consent of the Reichslieutenant for Vaterland in order to supply the lack of housing for Polish Catholic sisters. In the same memorandum, it was admitted that as a result of reorganization of charitable institutions, many Catholic sisters were without employment.
At the time that document was sent to...
That was the defendant von Ribbentrop.
Ribbentrop.
The use of the Polish language in sacred functions and even in the sacrament of penance was forbidden. Moreover, and this is a matter worthy of special mention and is at variance with the natural law and with the dispositions accepted by the legal systems of all nations, for the celebration of marriage between Poles, the minimum age limit was fixed at 28 years for men and 25 years for women. Catholic action was so badly hit as to be completely destroyed. The National Institute, which was at the head of the whole Catholic action movement in Poland, was suppressed. As a result, all the associations belonging to it, which were flourishing, as well as all Catholic cultural, charity, and social service institutions, were abolished. In the whole of the Vartigau, there is no longer any Catholic press and not even a Catholic bookshop. Grave measures were repeatedly taken with regard to ecclesiastical property. Many of the churches closed to public worship were turned over to profane uses. From such an insult, not even the cathedrals of Gniezno, Poznan, Vladislavia, and Lodz were spared. Episcopal residences were confiscated, the real estate belonging to the seminaries, convents, diocesan museums, libraries, and church funds were confiscated or sequestered. The administrative regulations published by the Lieutenant's Office for the application of the Ordinance of September 13, 1941, made the situation of the Catholics in that region still more difficult. For example, on November 19, 1941, came a decree of the Reichslieutenant by which, among other things, it was set forth that as from the previous September 13th, the property of the former juridical persons of the Roman Catholic Church should pass over to the Römisch-Katholischen Kirche Deutscher Nationalität in Reichsgau-Vaterland, insofar as, on the request of the above-mentioned Religionsgesellschaft, such property shall be recognized by the Reichslieutenant as non-Polish property. In virtue of this decree, practically all the goods of the Catholic Church in the Vatigau were lost. Not overlook other sects or denominations in their efforts to suppress Christian religion in Germany. They persecuted the Bibelforscher, or Bible research workers, as well. An affidavit by Matthias Lex, Vice President of the National Union of Shoemakers. In describing his experience in Dachau concentration camp, he says, I include in the political prisoners the Bible researchers, Bibelforscher, whose number I estimate at over 150. I want to read further from the last line of that page and the next few lines of the next page. The following groups were kept entirely isolated. The members of the so-called punishment companies, Strafkompanien, who were in a concentration camp for a second time, and after about 1937, also the Bibelforscher. Members of the punishment companies were such prisoners who had committed disciplinary or slight offenses against the camp regulations. The following groups lived separately, but could mix with the other groups during the day, either while working or while strolling through the camp. Political prisoners, Jews, anti-socials, gypsies, felons, homosexuals, and before 1937, also the Bible researchers. This was an order by the RSHA in 1942 authorizing third-degree methods against Jehovah's Witnesses. That was read by Colonel Story. I now turn to acts of suppression in the annexed and occupied territories. In Austria, Bishop Paulus Rusch of Innsbruck has written an illuminating report on this subject. I offer this sworn statement in evidence, 3278 PS, USA Exhibit number 569. This is a report on the fighting of National Socialism in the apostolic administration of Innsbruck Feldkirch, of Tyrol, and Vorarlberg.